Hi, I'm Alexander Maxim from Utopian.io. Today we will continue our series about PHP. In this tutorial, we will learn the second part of filters. In the previous tutorial, we have learned the filter validate. Today we will check the filter sanitize. The idea is that the filter validate will test and will validate if the value entered by the user is suitable, is correct with the type of column, for example, in our database or not. But the filter sanitize will clean or delete all the characters that don't belong to this type and will return the original characters of this type. We need before validation to do the impossible to minimize the faults of the user. So let's start. Firstly, we'll start with the filter sanitize email. What's the filter sanitize email? Now I'm the developer. I want to filter to minimize the error rate for the email. If the user entered a wrong value, for example, a character for another language is not defined, if it's fault in writing, we will delete it and save the correct email. And also we can return an error message. The filter sanitize email deletes all characters except letters, digits, and special characters, for example, exclamation, the hash, the dollar sign, the percent sign, etc. It has no options and no flags to use. Let's see how it works. So we are in the filter sanitize email. When the user enter, for example, this email, which is the single quotation, double quotation, AC space alexander@gmail.com. Firstly, the filter sanitize email will remove the double quotation, the A, the C, and the space, and we return alexander@gmail.com. So before using the filter validate email to see is this email is correct or no, we will firstly use the filter sanitize email to clean the wrong characters and to return the email like it. Then we will use the filter validate email to see if this form is a form of email or not. Then we will store it in our database if it's true, if it's with the form of the email. False, we will return an error, for example. Let's see an example to understand it more. So we are in the sanitize.html page. We have a form with the email, encoded, quote, float, int, special character, string, and URL. When we enter, for example, an email, we will pass all these informations to the action, which is the sanitize.php with the method post. So in the sanitize.php, we will get the values, for example, email in the $_post array with the key email and encoded with the key encoded, etc. All the values here in these variables. Then we will apply the example that we want to do for the email. So we have the filter var. We will pass the email that the user entered with the filter sanitize email, and we will store the result in the new email. Then we will use echo to print your email after sanitization is, and we will print the new email after clean the characters or the wrong characters. Let's reload and see before we will save, and let's reload and see. And when we enter, for example, the double quotation, E, A, for example, C, etc., and the space like it, and we will use alexander@gmail, for example, .com. We will return your email after sanitization is alexander@gmail.com without the spaces and without all the characters that we have entered. After that, we have the filter sanitize encoded. What's the filter sanitize encoded? The filter sanitize encoded applies URL encoding and deletes or encodes special characters. That means that by using this filter, we will sanitize the value entered by the user by transforming several characters and tags to text to ensure that we will find no problem in our database and in our site. It has 4 flags. The first flag, which is filter flag strip low, it strips characters that have a numerical value less than 32. The second filter flag strip high. It strips characters that have a numerical value greater than 127. Filter flag strip backtick. It strips backtick characters. And filter flag encode low. It encodes all characters with numerical value less than 32. And filter flag encode a high, which is the final flag. It encodes all characters with a numerical value greater than or bigger than 127. Let's see how it works. So we are in the filter sanitize encoded. When the user, for example, enter Alexander space H1 Maxim hidden, it will return Alexander and the %20 sign for the space and the %3C for the less than mark and H1 Maxim, etc. So it will replace all these characters with the HTML entities. It has 5 flags: filter flag strip low, filter flag strip high, filter flag strip backtick, and filter flag encode low and high. Let's see an example to understand it and to see how it works correctly. We have the filter var. We will pass the encoded value that the user entered in the sanitized HTML page, and we will use the filter sanitize encoded. We will store the result in the new encoded variable, then we will print it. Let's reload and see the result. And we have, for example, as we have the example, and we have each one here and each one hidden, and we have here Maxim. When we reload, we have Alexander and the %sign, which is %20, which is for the space, and all these characters that will secure our database. If we use, for example, a script here, a script code, and we will use alert, for example, or anything, it will transfer it to this code to be more secure in our database and in our site. After that, we have the filter sanitize magic queues. What's this filter? For the security of our query, we have studied functions to add slashes and backslashes to protect your queries. Today, we are going to use the filter sanitize magic queues that will also add backslashes before specified characters. These characters are the single quotation mark and the double quotation marks. It will secure your database using the slashes, and it has no flags. Let's see how it works. So we are in the filter sanitize magic queues. When the user enter, for example, thanks, good idea with the double quotation marks and single quotation marks, the result for the security of our query, it will be thanks, and we have the backslash here before the single quotation mark and before the double quotation mark, which the add slashes applies. So it will apply it before the single quotation mark and the double quotation mark to secure our query for our database. Let's see an example to understand it more and to try an example to see it. We will use the filter var. Always we will pass the quote or the value entered by the user in the quote input. We will use the filter sanitize magic quotes, and we will pass the results in the new quote variable. Then we will print it. Let's reload and see the results. And if, for example, we use select all from, for example, students, and we have here before students the backslash because we have the single quotation mark. The same thing when we use select all from, for example, students, but with the double quotation mark. So it will secure our query for our database. This is the filter sanitize magic queues. After that, we have the filter sanitize number float. What's the filter sanitize number float? In the previous tutorial, we have used the concept of validation, whereas if the user has entered a value, we must test it if it's correct or not. It depends to the type of filtering. Today we will try to change or to sanitize the value entered by the user. For example, in our case, now the input or the type is float. If the user entered a string of characters and numbers, we don't want to return an error, but we go ahead and leave the digits. Filter sanitize number float deletes all characters except digits, plus, minus, and possibly the dot, comma, and small and capital E. By default, if the user enters the point to separate the decimal, it will return the number without the point. For example, 12.5, it will return 125. To solve this problem, we along to use the filter flag allow fraction, and to accept the comma like a separator of thousands, we will use the filter flag allow thousand. For scientific number, we will use the filter flag allow scientific. Let's see how it works. So for the filter sanitize number float, if the user enters 12.5, it will return 125. But using the filter flag allow fraction, it will allow the dot here and it will return what the user entered. And for the comma, when we use 12 and the comma as 1000 separator, it will return 12,000.25. But using the filter flag allow 1000, it will allow the comma here as 1000 separator. And for the scientific numbers, we'll use the E, capital or small letter, and 17. When we use it, it will return 17. But using the filter flag allow scientific, it will allow the scientific numbers. Let's see a real example to understand it. So we have the filter var. When we pass the float value with the filter sanitize number float, we will store it in the new float and we'll print the result. Let's reload and see the result. If we enter, for example, hello, this is, for example, 12, it will return just 12. But when we enter something like, for example, 12.5, it will return 125. To solve this problem, we have mentioned that we will use the filter flag allow fraction. So we have the filter flag allow fraction as a flag for the filter sanitized number float. Let's reload and see the result. Now when we have 12, for example, .5, we will get 12.5 at place of 125. Now to use the comma, like it's, for example, like 1000 separator, we will get 12,000.25. To solve also this problem, we need to add the filter flag allow 1000 as a second flag with it, and we will change the fraction with 1000. Let's reload and see the results. And when we enter again 12 and the comma here 30 and dot 25, we have the 12,30.25. After that, we have the scientific numbers. When we enter E17 as the example, we will get just 17. To allow the scientific number, we will use the filter flag allow scientific. Let's reload and see the results. And when we enter E17, we'll get E17 as a scientific number. After the filter sanitized number float, we have the filter sanitized number int. What's the filter sanitized number int? For integers, we know that the input must have just digits. To sanitize and to return an integer value that has depended the value entered by the user, we need to use the filter sanitized number int. This filter removes all characters except digits, plus and minus sign. If we have an input age, for example, and if the user has entered 25 and B, we will not return an error message, but we will save the value 25 after sanitization it in the database. It has no options and no flags. Let's see how it works. So we are in the filter sanitized number int. When the user enter a value like it with digits and letters, it will return just an integer number without any other letters. So before using the filter validate int and return an error, we will sanitize the number entered by the user to not return an error and to not do a mistake in our site. And we will store the correct value or the integer number in our database because it's true in the filter validate int. Let's see an example to understand it more. So we will use the filter var. We will pass the int variable as parameter to the filter var with the filter sanitized number int. We will store it in the new int variable. Then we will print this new variable or this new value. Let's reload and see the result. And when we enter, for example, something like characters like it, we will get nothing. And when we enter the age is, and for example 25, we'll get 25. It will clean all the characters and return just the integer number. After that, we have the filter sanitize special characters. What's the filter sanitize special characters? As we have the filter sanitize string to remove the tags and JavaScript code, for example, we also have the filter sanitize special characters. This filter transforms the less than mark, greater than mark, the and, all these characters into ASCII characters and removes or encodes other special characters. For example, if we have the h2 hidden tag, it will transform the code to acceptable codes and no tag, and the browser will execute it as a text and not like an HTML tag. It has 4 flags: filter flag strip low, filter flag strip high, filter flag strip backtick, and filter flag encode high. Let's see how it works. So we are in the filter sanitize special characters. When we enter hello, how are you, it will return hello, how are you without no problem. And when we use hello and the HTML tag in the source or in the code source, we will get these characters at place of the greater and less than signs. Why we use the filter sanitize special characters? We use it to secure our code source like Facebook does. It has 4 flags: filter flag strip low, filter flag strip backtick, and filter flag encode high. Let's see a real example to understand it. So we will use the filter var always. We will pass the special character variable with the filter sanitize special characters. I will store it in the new special characters. Let's reload and see the result. And when we enter, for example, h1 something here, it will return h1 like it. But if we open the code source, we will get this code at place of the h1 tag. So we will secure our code source. Imagine if all our code source will be with these characters, it will be more secure. After that, we have the filter sanitize string. What's the filter sanitize string? To secure your database and your site, you must filter or record as always the values entered by the user. If the type of the input is text, the user has the hand to enter what he wants. He can enter a JavaScript code and it will be executed on your site. He can enter an HTML tag or what he wants in your database. For that, we will use the filter sanitize string. This filter delays the tags and delays or encodes the special characters. This filter has 7 flags. Filter flag no encode queues. If this flag is present, single and double quotations will be not encoded. We have also the filter flag strip low, filter flag strip high, filter flag strip backtick, filter flag encode low and high, and filter flag encode IMP, which includes the ampersands, which is the and sign. Let's see how it works. So we are in the filter sanitize string. When we enter, for example, script and $p.hide, the result will be just the $p.hide. The script code will be ignored. It has 7 flags. Let's see a real example to understand it. So we have the filter var. We will pass the string entered by the user, and we will use the filter sanitize string. We will make it in the new string. Let's reload and see the results. And when we enter, for example, h1 and h1, we will use here, for example, we'll get just here. It will ignore the HTML tags and JavaScript code. For example, when we use script here, for example, just alert or anything, it will return just the alert code. So we have the alert code. It will ignore the JavaScript code. This is the filter sanitize string. And after that, we have the filter sanitize URL. What's the filter sanitize URL? Before using the filter validate URL that we have learned in the previous tutorial, to test whether the URL is valid or not, we will use the filter sanitize URL. This filter removes all characters except letters, digits, and $, minus, plus, etc. characters. So we will try first to note and delete all the wrong characters. After, we will test if the form of the value entered by the user is a form of URL or not. This filter has no flags. Let's see how it works. So we have the filter sanitize URL. When the user enters something like it, for example, it's logically not a URL, we have these special characters. The result will be just alexander.com. It will remove all these special characters, because when we pass this value entered by the user to the filter validate URL, it will return false. To solve this problem, we will use the filter sanitize URL and return this correct URL and pass it to the filter validate. If it's true, we'll store this URL in the database without any problems and without errors. Let's see a real example. So we have the filter var method. We will pass the URL entered by the user with the filter sanitize URL. We will make it in the new URL. Let's reload and see the result. And when we enter, for example, something like HTTPS and these special characters, for example, and the space and alexander.com, for example, we will get HTTPS alexander.com without spaces and without the special characters to secure your database and to secure your site. Today we have learned the filter sanitize email, encoded, magic quotes, number float, int, sanitize special characters and string, and finally the URL. Thank you for your watching.